Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata with the Real 50 Over 50. And today we have a special guest, like we do every Wednesday. It's Shulamit Ber Levtov. And I want to tell you a little bit about her, and then we're going to let her fill in the blanks in case I miss anything. So, she's been an entrepreneur for over 27 years. She's obviously over 50. She spent 22 years as a mental health and personal growth professional, and there's an importance of having those two pieces there, because it's not just about the mental health or the personal growth. Those pieces kind of have to learn to work together. And she has created this mix of work that brings her to the intersection of mental health, trauma healing, financial psychology, and entrepreneurship. And she believes deeply that we are stronger with support. And I have to agree. I've gone through a lot of this type of work in my own personal growth and my own healing. And this is not for the faint of heart. And it's really not work to be done alone. You need a guide, you need a Sherpa. And what I love is she keeps people from blowing up their businesses when the shit hits the fan. And we all have those shit hits the fan days, and sometimes they're consecutive.
Right?
So I am
Yes.
going to hand this over to you, Shula, and please leave out anything I missed and what you want people to know about you, and we'll have a conversation.
Sure. I think the only thing I would add is my location because in the online world, I encounter so often folks who are in the US and I'm in Canada. Not far from the US. I'm about half an hour north of the where the St. Lawrence River runs across between the top of New York State and the bottom of the province of Ontario. But I just want to say wave the flag as being Canadian over here.
Well, I love my neighbors to the north. Okay, so we're gonna dive right in. I got a couple of questions for you to get the conversation going. I'm gonna just put your website up there in case
Thank
anybody
you.
wants to take a look. So what led you to this interesting intersection of work that you do today?
So I started school when I was 19 in social work, but got diverted into radio and TV and then some other work and in the course of my life, I became injured in the work that I was doing and had to do my own occupational rehab. And it made sense to go back to my roots and get the master's degree I always wanted and become a therapist. But I also, this is something to do with being the real 50 over 50. Uh, I wanted to complete my master's before I was 50, and I did it. Yay.
Yay.
But being an older woman and starting a new career, I had to build for myself a business that was going to last. Also, for those of us who are 50 and over, like many of us came into the job market in the 80s, and people think the gig economy is like news. When I came into the job market, there weren't jobs, there were only contracts, right? No benefits, no pension, no savings, nothing, and no stability either. So that was the background on which, when I launched into this career as a therapist, I had to have a business that was going to work for me.
Hmm.
And I knew that most small businesses fail in the first year, and if they last the first, they fail in the first 5. And I also knew that mental health professionals score the lowest on measures of financial wellness across all professions. And so, right away out of school, even though I was an excellent therapist, I knew nothing about running a business. So I jumped right away into business coaching, business training, business classes, and importantly, networking with other business owners. And as the only therapist networking in these business spaces, people would often confide in me because they knew I was a therapist. So they made an assumption that I was like a friendly, warm, approachable person. And lucky for them, I was able to respond to them in a way that was supportive to them when they told me their stories about the difficulties that they encountered in business. And I also experienced for myself the emotional roller coaster where one day it's great and the next day you're circling the toilet and it's like you're circling the drain, and you're like, wow, what the hell, right? And how hard that is on your mental and emotional well being. So initially in my work, I was a trauma therapist running a business to support myself, a therapy business. But as it became more and more clear to me that there needed to be somebody who understood the impact of owning a business on your mental health and your mental and emotional well being, and knowing that the success of your business depends on niching down so that you get clear about who you serve, then when I was thinking about that and thinking about the need, that's how the entrepreneur's therapist was born.
Yeah, and brilliant. I mean, absolutely brilliant. I can imagine those first networking events that you went to, you know, there were no therapists because they were, doing continuing education,
Yeah, still no
learning, that's all
therapist
they
in
did,
the.
they were
Yep.
not taught how to run a business, and, even today, I don't think there's much in that
No, not
training.
many. Yeah.
They'll probably do, like, a little course that you take over the summer or something like that, and my son was looking into studying therapy, psychology in school, and, there really wasn't much in the way of having a business or the business side of being a therapist,
This is
not even, like, dealing with insurance companies or things like
right.
that.
Yeah.
It was really surprising. It was really surprising, but
This is an I'm just going to interrupt for a second because this is an important aspect of the psychology of money and scarcity and
Mhm.
how we see that psychology play out in certain professions, therapists in particular, but many others as well, where it's like it's a helping profession. It's not right to make money. You shouldn't be charging for this. You shouldn't. Money is not spiritual. Money is bad. And these are all beliefs that we receive that impact how we behave in relation to our money, not only for therapists, but all people who own a business, right?
it's
And
very
that
true.
can really have an impact on whether we can pay our bills.
Yeah. Yep. That is one of the things that I healed over the last year or so because we didn't have a lot of money growing up and, I was
Hmm.
not taught, how to be, responsible with money. It was like, well, you got enough to pay the bills. We're having a good month.
Yeah, yeah. And if you get a big dump of money, spend it fast because it's going to be gone soon,
Yeah.
right?
So
Like if you
before
suddenly
somebody
come
else
upon a
gets it.
windfall, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and, I had to learn about that, and I had to learn how to address the shame that was
Yes,
underneath the
yes,
trauma. I
yes,
always felt like, I'm just peeling another layer,
yes,
but I realized that under those layers were these blocks, and those
yes.
blocks were actual, components of who you have built yourself to be, and they
Mhm.
can be broken down and healed in an entirely different way, and I have been working on healing my shame around money, and
Sure.
it's
Well, and
powerful.
we live it like that shame didn't come from nowhere. We
No.
live in a culture that shames us,
Yes.
that directly connects our worth and value as a human to our capacity with money.
Yes.
And one of the really like I have dyscalculia, which for folks who like the simple explanation is it's like dyslexia, but for numbers,
Mhm.
but it's much further reaching than only reversing and mixing up numbers. It's a learning disability. And it was a revelation to me to discover that in fact I'm not bad with money, I'm bad with numbers. And when I say I'm bad with numbers, it's not a moral judgment. It means that my brain literally can't handle numbers. And once I separated those two things and all the shaming that I got in school for being bad with numbers and not fast enough and disconnected the numbers and the money thing and came to have compassion for myself as someone who has always and still to this day, I have a thriving business. My numbers are all in the right place, but I still struggle with calculations and all number related things. But
Mhm.
to be compassionate toward myself and to say, this is just how my brain works. Just like you can say, I came to these beliefs about money for good reason.
Mhm.
These beliefs developed as a way to cope with and manage the adverse circumstances I was experiencing. And I could say the same thing to myself about some of the beliefs that I had as well, right? To be able to be kind to ourselves
Yes.
and to acknowledge and validate creates room for us then, like you say, to see what's happening and to heal it. And if we're shitting on ourselves, there's no way we can see what's going on, let alone offer healing and care to ourselves.
No, and that was one of the biggest and hardest lessons that I had, was learning to be kind to myself, because the stuff
Yeah,
I said to myself, I wouldn't say to anybody else. It
yeah,
was awful,
yeah,
really
yeah,
awful.
yeah. When I
And
first started my trauma recovery, my therapist wanted me to say the metta prayer: "May I be filled with loving kindness. May I, let me see. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May I be well and happy, and may I know peace." And this is a universal metta prayer that comes from the Buddhist tradition. And we start, the traditional way to do it is you start with yourself and then extend it to others. But I could not, I had the words on a page and I couldn't even, I was crying so hard, like it just brought up. So my beloved at the time actually was the one who read it to me. And I just boo hooed over this for months because it was so hard,
yeah,
so hard.
yeah,
And yet how much it changes when we're able to extend that to ourselves. Yeah.
it is the things that are simple but not easy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got another question for you.
All right.
Um, can you share a little bit about what sustainable success might look like in your life or your business?
Sustainable success for me is, and I'm going to pause a moment because I want to be clear, but also be real, like not give a formulaic answer. And what I'm noticing is the same thing I always say is the thing that's coming right now. As a trauma survivor, my life has to be organized in such a way that it supports my capacity to do my work. And so it took me a long time to figure out how my life needed to be arranged in this regard, you know?
Mhm,
And I also have to say that some of the things that I am able to offer myself are a direct function of my privilege, particularly my financial well being at this point in time. I'm not making scads of money, but I have a very low overhead, and I did that on purpose, um, as a result of some good fortune, but also privilege, that my overhead is quite low. But that means that I have access to rest as a result.
yeah,
And for me, rest, not sleep, but like for my nervous system, that I can soothe and nourish and discharge my nervous system so that I can come to work resourced. And so having spaciousness in my business and spaciousness in my life, um, create, that's what sustainable success looks like for me. It's not so much the business itself, it's really what's happening around outside of my business, so that there's space outside it, but then also that there's space within it. So the way that I arrange my workday allows for my nervous system to get what it needs, not to be overstimulated, to have, um, enough messages of it. You know, we have a lot of threat messages, a lot of demand messages, but that there's also, enough comfort messages coming in as well. And I say comfort specifically, not safety, because for trauma survivors especially, safety can kind of be a ludicrous idea, because for some of us, even inside ourselves, there is no safety because of our physiology, right? We might have chronic pain.
mhm,
We might also have things happening in our thoughts and our minds that are not what we would consider safe. But comfort is something that's accessible, much more so than safety. And so that's why I say, you know, I'm organizing my life and my business so that I have plenty of safety messages to balance the, demand messages. And that's what it looks like for me. I mean, of course, there's the brass tacks of like enough clients and enough money, enough being determined, by my, what my finish line looks like, which was a whole calculation that I did, because I don't want to just say 6 or 7 figures or so many zeros or whatever. I have to actually know. And this is part of healing the money psychology stuff. I have to know, what does a
yeah,
sustainable life money wise actually require in money, and design my business to respond to that so that it meets that need for me.
yeah,
So there are like, there are the concrete business strategies that matter, but I think fundamentally it's about, for me, that sense of spaciousness and comfort outside and within my business both.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I actually do with clients too, from a marketing perspective, because they often have these, pie in the sky ideas of what they wanna do, and they don't even really need it because, like, we all have really small businesses. What do we actually
Yes.
need?
Yes.
10 or
And the
20
simple,
or
simple, simple.
30 clients a year. So start there and like what is the revenue that you could make from those 30 clients a year and then work backwards to figure out what you need to do to get there. And when I
Yeah.
take clients through that exercise, they're like, "Oh, yeah, I could find those 30 people." You don't have to find a
Right.
zillion. I mean, if you want to
It's a
find 30
relief that you don't
people,
have to hustle for those big numbers. Yeah.
exactly. If you want to connect with 30 people, connect with 1,000. That's it. So yeah, it takes it down and it simplifies it, and then when you can start to simplify your thought processes around what you need in your business, that in itself is self-healing.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I agree.
Yeah, because there's so much push to do what you don't really need, and everybody's trying to do what somebody else did, but none of that really matters. What do you need?
Yeah. It's so idiosyncratic too, right? There are no formulas. We really need something adapted to ourselves. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and, one of the things that really it hit deep for me this year, because 'cause I've taken, like, a year to redesign my business, is that, nobody has the answers. You have the answers,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
have to give
Yes.
yourself
Yes.
permission
Yes.
to find them within yourself, and,
Yeah.
I think that the support that people need is people that will hold that space for them in whatever
Yes.
capacity so they can find those answers, and, I knew that in words, but I know that on a, like, deep, deep, deep level now.
Right. There's a difference between knowing it and actually integrating, we could say sensing or feeling it like experientially
Yeah.
in the whole of us. It just comes out then in a different way, right?
It's an embodiment of it.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I've got more questions for you. Alright, let me see what I got next. Okay, this is, some people might not have, heard of this type of practice,
Right.
but what is a libertary practice?
Liberatory, yeah.
Libertary
So what
practice.
I noticed as an activist was that we would have liberatory goals, goals for liberation, goals for changing the world, making the world a better place, right? Liberation, justice and liberation. But in the process of aiming for these goals, we would still engage in the same harmful, oppressive behaviors in our processes, in the way in which we did things. And so uh, we, like, the cost was enormous. People burn out all the time. Activists and social people with a social impact mission burn
Mhm.
out all the time because it's enormously difficult to be aiming for these things in a world that does not support liberation. And so, liberatory practice is can be understood as behaving in ways that liberate us moment to moment. And so, for example, rest is a liberatory practice. Uh, Relationship marketing is a form of liberatory practice, right? Because relating to one another, human to human, liberates us from the capitalist, white supremacist, dehumanizing, oppressive structures in which we live. So anything that, I hate to say it this way, but is the opposite of those things, that nurtures, that slows, that relates, that connects, that involves love, like not sentimental hallmark love. I mean, true love in the sense of like metta, for example. Um, Self compassion, like Kristen Neff conceives of it as having a fierce component,
Mhm.
those kinds of things that we can embody them and behave them in our day to day. To me, that's liberatory practice.
Yes. build them into everything that we do.
Yes,
So
yes.
it's not we don't even have to think about it. It's just part of what we do and
Yeah,
how we do everything. So
yeah.
it's basically how you do anything is how you
Is
do
how
everything.
you yes, absolutely, yes.
That's one of my favorite statements.
Yeah.
That was really beautiful. Okay, so now if you can share, like, what happened when you turned 50? Because one of the reasons I started all of this, I'm not a big demographics person. I really believe about values and what connects people is what they care about. Um, but there is something distinct that happens when you turn 50. You change.
Yeah. Uh, I so something big did happen for me when I turned 50. First of all, I have to say I had been like my life every decade was better and better. I
Mhm,
really have no yearning to go back to my youth because it was so shitty. Right? I mean, there were good things about it, but
mhm,
overall, like I just don't have any desire to go back there. Although, don't get me wrong, in a society that values and gives social currency to youth and thinness and beauty and all those things, I do miss the access to privilege that I had when I was younger and prettier and had a smaller body, right? Uh, but that has to do more with the social currency than it has to do with my experience of myself when I was those things.
mhm.
On an internal level, I was looking forward every year to every decade to celebrating. And so when I turned 50, I was so proud and happy. I couldn't wait. And I was just like, this is my 50th birthday. And I told my friends and family, this is what I want. This is the kind of gift I want for this birthday, which was really chutzpahdik. Like I've never, my family's very polite and you don't
Mhm,
really, it's like, to ask for, if you're going to give me a gift for my birthday, this is what I want. I wanted a Pandora bracelet with the number 50 and then kind of like charms that
mhm.
from them that they chose for this bracelet to represent my 50th. Some did what I wanted and some didn't, and that's okay. But I knew it was a milestone, and so when I was thinking about what is different now, and this didn't just happen by accident. Like this was the result of like reflection as I came into my 50s. What it felt like was like if you remember in the 70s those racetracks, I don't remember Mattel. They had the Mattel racetrack with they
And you
weren't
pulled the car
motorized.
back?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
and the momentum swinging out of the curve and into the straightaway.
yeah. Mhm,
That's what it was like for me. Was that I had been in the curve for most of my life, but the clarity that came around what I was here for and what I was supposed to be doing in my career and what my contribution professionally was supposed to be to the world, I was like on the straightaway. I knew what was happening. I knew where I was going. I knew what I was supposed to do, and I was freed. The momentum was freed up to do it. That was the really cool thing about turning 50. I'm turning 59 in 6 weeks.
mm,
And this is now my second Saturn return, which Saturn is the teaching planet.
mhm.
So I'm in a reflective process because next year, when I'm doing a year of reflection leading up to my 60th birthday, when I'm going to have a croning ceremony where I'm going to embrace the crone phase of my life. And I'm as excited about that as I was about 50 because I think it's going to be pretty, it's an equally pivotal moment, I think, 60 as 50, especially for women
We
to
should do
reclaim that.
we should do this together. I'll be 59 on Monday.
Sweet. Yay. Congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, we're in the same space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel, totally different, totally different.
Yeah.
And, 50 was a big one, but, when I hit 55, like, just as I was edging up to 55, I
Mhm.
really started to get clear, and then I went into a health issue that I've been dealing with for 4 years, which I'm almost at the end of, thank goodness,
Yay.
but it's like I just snapped back to where I was at that time when, everything kinda got put on hold, and I feel like I'm on that straightaway too. It's a great feeling, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Yes, it is.
It's so interesting because I've had, several people that are not 50 wanting to do this, and they reach out to me. They keep reaching out to me with, like, a different angle on how they could be involved, and I was like, "Just share." Sorry, you don't know. You don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So what else? We've got 5 minutes left. What else would you like to share? What do you want people to know? Is there something, maybe a strategy that you can share um, with the audience where they could do something, easy or quick that would really make a difference for them?
We alluded to it. I mean, we discussed it actually, but we didn't discuss the how earlier, which is the self kindness thing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting. People have an idea of what self kindness is and get intimidated by that. And also sometimes get blowback because when you offer yourself kindness, sometimes it can bring up really overwhelming emotions, like when I described what happened for me with the metta practice for myself. But one of the first steps in self kindness is to acknowledge you're feeling what you're feeling. So when you're upset, to go, oh, I'm upset. Just the simple oh, the recognition. Oh, I'm upset. And then, if you want, you can offer yourself a gentle gesture. You can, this is my gesture. I like very much to place my hand on my heart space, but some people like to place their hands on their cheeks or their hands together, to get some gentle touch, to feel the gentle touch and to say, I'm feeling upset. This is a difficult moment. I'm having a hard time right now. And those two things, the acknowledgement and the valid the acknowledgement and then this like uh tender gesture, this kind gesture, can be plenty. And the third thing, if you want, that you can do is you can validate yourself. We're going, like, especially as entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
we often have a hard time. And so you can be like, ah, this is a difficult moment. Oh, right, this is a difficult moment. And then you can say, well, no freaking wonder. Look what I'm trying to do. Running a business is so damn difficult. And it's not that there's something wrong with me that it's hard. It's that it's hard that I'm hard, that it's hard, which is why I'm having a hard time. It's not me,
Mhm.
it's the thing is hard. So, of course, I'm having a hard time. Nothing wrong with that.
No. And
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 these
we
three little
we we
things.
yeah, and we go to blame ourselves because everything is our
Yes.
work is so personal. It's such a fine
Yeah.
line. So instead of
Yeah.
blaming the thing, not even blaming, I don't like to use that word, but
Well, making
um, you
ourselves
know,
wrong.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Beth
And just
says
to say,
it's
no wonder.
take a breath and step back to see what's really going on.
Yeah. 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 That breath can really help, right? That moment of like, I'm upset. Oh, yes, I'm upset. And then taking the breath. Oh,
Yeah. Before
this
you
is a
go into the
difficult moment.
spin.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, because that keeps you from going into that spin where
It
then you're
does.
stuck in this cycle and you need like you need like farm equipment to get out of.
I love that analogy. Yes, you need definite heavy equipment to get yourself out of that. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, and that's, I think that that is part of being over 50.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly, I mean, maybe younger people could do this because they were raised differently and raised in a different time, but the way that we were raised to be servants, basically.
And this culture, honestly, in general, while there are people who have different experiences individually, the culture does not support us in being kind to ourselves. It's a
No.
spare the rod and spoil the child culture. It's a reward and punishment culture. It's a culture
Yep.
that believes that the way we get ourselves to do things is to shit talk. Get up off the couch, you potato.
Yeah.
And that's just not, all the research shows that people who perform better across all measures are people who are also kind to themselves.
Yeah. It makes all the difference in the world. I did not learn how to
It
do
does.
that until I was in my 50s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, even when I had my job, um, I worked at various law firms for 27 years. And I felt the entire time that I worked there that everything that I had and everything that I achieved was given to me by the law firm. And I worked my tail off. I earned everything.
Yes.
But you get pulled into these indoctrinated situations and you don't learn how to, be your own person and stand up for what you need. And when you can do that, it changes everything. And the work that you do, which I've had the opportunity to have an intimate look at the back end of, is really important.
Mm.
It's really, really important, and it doesn't need to be painful, and it doesn't need to be hard. It can be gentle and kind and supportive, and I
Yes.
love that throughout everything that um, you share that it's better with support, it's easier with support, that you don't have to be alone doing this, the farm equipment doesn't have to have sharp edges.
No, that's right. One of the analogies I like to use is high performing athletes. And we look at these high performing athletes and think it's the individual, but if we really take a look at it takes to make this athlete a high performer, it's that they have a team behind them. They have a
Mhm,
doctor and a chiropractor and a massage therapist and a nutritionist and a coach and the rest of the team. And no reason that we should think that we are a problem because we have a team as well. That's what makes us stronger, the support of the
mhm.
team.
Yeah, yeah, and, I've even created, like, team members within myself.
Yes.
So, like, I have, one of the things that I have is the Raggedy Ann doll I had since I was a little girl that came
Yes.
out during a trauma healing session that I had. I literally went to my closet, got her. She was there for 10 years and I never touched her. And like I didn't realize that I went and got her. And from that day forward, she sits behind me and she
There
has my
she
back
is.
because she represents my
Yes.
inner child.
I love that. I love that.
So she's part of my process.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just wrapping up here. Any last words or anything you want to share?
I think that what you've just brought up about our capacity for creating our own inner teams as well as external teams, that's a skill that anyone can develop. And when you have that skill of the inner team, that can make you even more powerful. And I love that you brought that up.
It has really helped me a lot because we do so much alone, there's
Yeah,
not always somebody there to help. And when we could help ourselves in addition to getting the external help that we need, it kind of gives you like that 360
yeah,
protection.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We can be there for ourselves. We don't have to only be there for ourselves. We don't have to do it alone, but we
Mhm.
can be there for ourselves.
Yes.
And the that having the 360, like you say, not either or, but all.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been a delight as always to spend time with you, and
I'm so
thank you for
grateful you
sharing.
invited me. Thank you.
And thank you for sharing. And everybody connect with Shula at shula.ca because she's Canadian. And she also shares great stuff on Instagram and the other socials too. But she's kind
Yeah,
of,
LinkedIn and Instagram are my two faves.
yeah,
Don't be shy. DM me and say hi. I would love to have a chat.
yeah, yeah. And you could, if you're watching the replay, put some comments in, let us know what you think. This video will be available here on Facebook and LinkedIn. It will also be shared on the Real 50 Over 50 website on Shula's page. Come visit there and connect with Shula and some of the other women. We are about to put the 50th woman up on the website. I'm just waiting for her pictures. She's sending me her pictures today, and we've got more coming because over 100 people said yes.
That's incredible.
So we're just over 2 months into this project, and we've already hit 50. So our name doesn't apply anymore, but we're going to stick with it, and more fun things coming. So stay tuned and keep coming back on Wednesdays at noon Eastern time to meet another incredible woman. Thank you, Shula.
Thanks, Donna.